talking with the Michael Steele, co-host of The Weekend and the Michael Steele podcast. He also, of course, former lieutenant governor from the great state of Maryland, former RNC chair. You're still a Republican. You're
Yeah.
still a Republican. November, Donald Trump is your nominee. Do you vote?
Yes,
Do you
I
not
do vote. I
Okay,
vote.
you vote. You definitely
Absolutely.
vote. Okay, I kind
will
of knew that
absolutely
answer, but I
vote.
had to ask. I had to
I
ask. You absolutely
absolutely
vote.
will vote.
Who do you vote for?
Joe Biden.
Okay. All right. That's easy enough. So for people to call you a sellout, because that comes right. That goes. You're going to vote for Joe Biden. How can you do that, Michael Steele?
Well,
You're a
did
Republican.
they pay attention to the 2020 election? What did I do in 2020?
Voted for Joe Biden.
And how did I do it? I stood up as the former chairman of the National Party, and I said that I put my country over my party. And I still do to this day, because I always have. It has never been a question for me, even as a Republican growing up in Washington, D.C., which you don't get much lonelier than that in this area, certainly growing up back in the day. But I've always, my mom and my dad always taught me, despite the difficulties that they both had as African Americans in this country, and particularly in that city, they still taught me the value of this proposition, right? That we are all a part of this great experiment. And so I do value my country. I value the loyalty I have to it. And I get up in the morning and I am happy to be here. And I'm happy to be here because I know that there are a lot of men and women, many from my family and other families that served in our military to make that happen, and who actually serve in various roles across this land to help create prosperity and to help me stand on their shoulders in a way that I do today. So yeah, I'm not gonna give in to my party because my party has decided to show its authoritarian ass. I'm sorry. That's not good enough for me. It's, in fact, that's not even a conversation starter for me to think that I'm going to embrace that. And so I stand in contravention of where my party is, and I keep the label on the label on to remind them of what we once were like, and to say we are still that if we want to be. And so yeah, if my choice is Joe Biden and Donald Trump in November of 2024, Mr. President, you got my vote. It's not complicated.
Well, okay, Michael Steele.
And I'll have just real quick, Karen, and I'll have the battle as I've had with the administration on some of its policies and so forth. Right? I'll have that. That's the space we should be in.
We should all be doing that anyway.
Thank you.
Period.
That's the space we should be in.
Okay. For you, and here's where I struggle, because we don't have an equal and opposite reaction to Trump, which science says we should, right? There's no equal and opposite reaction to this. So Trump was never a Republican. So this is not even about Republicans and Democrats, right? And it's so weird to me sitting here. It's like his own children couldn't vote for him in the primary because they are registered Democrats for their entire lives in New York. They didn't even change their party affiliation because it was never about being president.
You would have thought there would have been a family meeting on that one.
Yeah. No, because he was shocked. He didn't even have his party at his own facilities, which he would have had at a Trump situation if he thought he was going to win. This is so crazy to me. And now he's emboldened, right? With these 91 indictments, you know, you got drama in Georgia, New York. It's like, folk can't get their stuff together. I don't know if he can somehow manage to not go to jail. I almost feel like it's unstoppable. So I need to know, because Michael Steele, you don't have any sway with these folk. It feels like as much as you were the RNC chair and all this, they have like pretty much discarded you.
Oh yeah.
Who do you talk to? Like, who can you convince to do anything rational or sane at this point?
Well, see, so that's another great question, Karen, because you would think after now going on 8 years that this wouldn't have to be a conversation. the objective reality that has produced itself over the last 8 years, let alone the last year, in which we saw 91 indictments laid at his feet. We saw this man judged as a sexual predator in the E. Jean Carroll case. Couldn't keep his mouth, had to pay $5 million for that. Couldn't keep his mouth shut, started defaming the woman, and now has to pay $83 million for that. You would think that all of that objectively would say to people inside the Republican Party, what the hell are we doing? why are we messing with this fool? What are we doing? We had a brand that had some value. I mean, look, pat on back, the winningest chairman in the 21st, latter 20th, early 21st century of the Republican Party, right? What have we done since then? Since 2010? Jack. Why? Because we have gone down a path with this sort of dystopian-esque kind of Tea Party MAGA thing, in which we become the party of grievance, not the party of faith and family and values that we said we once were, or the party that valued the future opportunities. So you would think people would have figured that out, but they can't. So there's nothing that really can be said at this point.
Yeah.
Riddle me this.
I'm not optimistic.
No, because here, I mean, a good example on a stage in which Donald Trump was not even present, right? 8 individuals running to be the nominee of the Republican Party for the presidency of the United States were asked, if Donald Trump is a convicted felon, would you support and endorse Donald Trump for the presidency? 6 out of hands said yes, including Nikki Haley, who's now trying to trash him. Like, Nikki, it's not credible. You just told us that you would support the man if he's a convicted felon. And when he beats you in South Carolina, what are you going to do? You're going to raise your hand and go, I endorse Donald Trump. So why am I going to waste my capital now politically on a campaign that's ultimately going to end up where every other campaign has ended up? And on a politician who's going to end up doing what every other politician inside the Republican Party has done. This is the reality of the American people. If you want a viable, functioning 2-party system, you need to commit yourselves to introducing the Republican Party to a political enema, because that's the only way this thing gets fixed.
That's so messy. And true. Michael Steele is here. You were studying to become a priest at one point. You wanted to devote your life to Christ, to God.
Still devoted.
Still devoted to God.
Just don't wear the habit.
But it is a habit to do good and to be good. This evangelical move, there's a clip going around from Mike Keller, who's the dad of Lindsay. I think her name is Anna Duggar's father. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yep. She married Josh Duggar, who is serving a sentence for child pornography. These great Christians. During a sermon, and he's a big, vast Trump supporter, this is what we're up against, right? I don't know how we fight this level of ignorance, but Smith, play the clip.
150 years ago, or 200 years ago, when the blacks were slaves, did they ever go to Washington, D.C. and have a rally 200 years ago to protest against slavery? Did they? No. What did they do? Well, a lot of good people in the plantations would say, hey, it's wintertime. Let us help build a church for you, dear folks. And they loved them and taught them how to read so they can read the Bible. And here's what the blacks did about 150 years ago. They humbled themselves. They prayed. They sought God's face and they turned from their wicked ways. And God made slavery illegal through several white presidents, right? It worked, didn't it?
I'm sorry. Can you stop the clip?
Yes.
I'm right now. I'm just. This is a family show, so I will not
Is
say.
it? No, this is the
Well,
Carrot Hunter show. We speak honestly here. So
I
there could
can't.
be cheering in the car, but say what you need to say, Michael
I
Steele.
just I'm gonna go under the assumption that there are children in the car listening, and I would just say um, that that is vile. It is the definition of ignorance. It is the definition of patrimony and sort of this sense of, don't you get it? We white people helped you. We helped you find
Right.
God. And when you found God, you were grateful because it didn't matter that you were that the white man enslaved you. That's not really what it was. And it goes to what we saw in Florida with the educational system there trying to teach people that, oh yeah, slavery was like the best jobs program in American history. So this is what we're up against, folks. This is the space that MAGA has opened. And in one sense, I will say this. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing your ass so appropriately. So now we know what we're dealing with out here. Now we know, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, community to community, people to people, what we're dealing with. Y'all keep talking and telling us exactly how you feel, because that is the only way we get past the moment. Because we're not going to sit back on the plantation and let y'all build a church for us and just be complacent about it. If, let's put it this way, let's update his example. If African Americans, because of the continued ongoing treatment, the redlining, the poor education, the lack of health care, don't even talk about the criminal justice system, which we've had myriad of examples just in the last year to 2 years, had decided, you know what, F this, we're going to the Capitol. And we're going to show up on the Capitol, and we're taking our American flags, and we're taking our Black Lives Matter flag, and we're taking our African flags, we're taking our red, our black, and our green, and we're going to the Capitol. And we did. Now, we didn't even have to do what we saw on January 6th. We just breached the barricade. What the hell do you think the response would have been?
So you know what it would have been.
We know exactly what it would have been.
That in of itself
right.
speaks volumes about where we are.
So that's good to hear, as angering and frustrating as it is good to hear, because now we know what we have to do, and we know what we have in front of us and what we need to be prepared for. I've had conversations with people who sit there and talk about a civil war like they would talk about making chicken soup. That's their mindset. They're like, oh yeah, okay, it's happening. One guy said to me, well, we already in it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I think we are. So we need to understand that. And we need everybody who are aligned on the side of democracy to understand that there are those in our midst who have embraced the darkness of life and really want to strike out. And I think we need to be prepared for that.
Yesterday we had a brother on, Charles Coleman Jr.
I know Charles,
also
good man.
A man that is on MSNBC where you are, and we were talking about the political cycle, and I was, he said we need to be on the same page in terms of what the ask is. We've always contended here on Urban View that voting is maybe step 8 out of 10. You vote, you put people in office, but then you have to hold them accountable.
You do.
But then you also have to have a list of things that you want. There's a lot of complaints. Well, the Asians get this and the gays get that and this and this. But they're agendas, right? And here you go. When the civil rights movement happened, Lyndon Baines Johnson wasn't let off the hook. No, we're going to march on Washington. We're going to march anyway. But here are the things we want to get done. And in the inside of the House, we had Adam Clayton Powell banging on the same levers of power. There was a strategy. There's no strategy right now. I hear no tangibles, no vote. But then when I ask, how do you get tangibles, which equal reparations, you need to elect people who are going to pass the laws, right? So what's your plan for that? There's no silence. So my question to you, what should be the strategy? November, no matter who's elected, we still have the ability to demand certain things, or we should have an agenda of like, what is it that we want? What is it that we need as an American citizen? What would be your top 3 things?
So let's pull the lens back, because I am going to answer that question, but let's pull the lens back just a little bit and start with us, Black people, who over 400 plus years, since 1619, have been deliberately divided, subdivided, and further divided, have been separated, male from female, parent from child, that have created within our own community a lack of cohesion and a lack of consensus about the things that are important to us. So I think when you ask the question, what is the agenda? Okay, let's have that conversation, because we haven't had it yet. And we have to have it in a way in which we recognize that we are all, that is an unequal space. It's an unlevel space, right? It's not leveled. It's not, Baltimore is not Los Angeles. And Miami is not, the Bronx. Where we are concentrated, where we live, even in rural communities, our expression and our needs and how we would check that list, what the checkoffs are, would be different. So we need what happened in the late 50s, that was actually born out of the Reconstruction period, was a general consensus around a baseline platform, the foundation, civil rights. You can't do anything else unless you have civil rights. And you can't act on civil rights unless you are enforcing that with the vote, which is your point, right? And so once you achieve those 2 things, and this was the important message of Dr. King, I believe, very to my heart, the conversation wasn't so much about what was on the mall going on in 1963, August 28th. He was talking to the future, and he was saying to us, we have to be prepared to lay out what that agenda is, what that dream is. And I think for me, it centers around, you mentioned 3 things. We need to have a fundamental agreement on how our children are educated, because at the end of the day, it don't matter if they can't read, if they can't speak well, if they can't write, if they can't cognitively function, then we have ill-served their future, and we've missed their opportunity for them. The next piece is we need to agree fundamentally on the full economic empowerment of Black community. Our wealth is our wealth, which we create and share, right? But we create it within our own communities, and we share it outside of this. Stop giving that ish away. Stop giving it away, because no one else is giving it back. They ain't giving their share to you, right? You don't believe me? Look at your public school and look at their public school. All right? So leverage that power. And the third thing is the power itself. Honestly, I just start unelected people. I'd be sitting there, it was like a job interview. Okay, question 1, question 3, question 7. Okay, thank you very much. Nah, I ain't voting for that. That's ultimately, and you saw an inkling of that in 2020 when Congressman Clyburn leveraged his power and bent the political arc of the Democratic Party towards South Carolina. So much so that where they starting their
Yes, South Carolina will be its first official primary as a result. Yes,
we need more of that. We need more of that political leverage. So those are the 3 things. our education of our children, empower them. And that means I'm not fighting for public schools. Damn it, I've been here how long? Why am I still fighting for something that is a given? It's public schooling. So you know what? We want what they got over there. If they got a library with computers in it, I want a library with computers over here. If not, guess what, school board? You gone. And guess what, superintendent? You gone. You guess what, county executive? You gone. Guess what, legislative body? You gone. Guess what, governor? You gone. Because you're not working to empower my children. So you empower everybody else's kids. And look, I don't have to go that far. It's not like you got to get in your car and go way around the Beltway. You know, just go 3 neighborhoods over. And so leverage on education, leverage the wealth of the community. You and I both know, Karen, the 2008-9 economic crisis, COVID, recession, we ain't nowhere in the mix in the recovery. They ain't talking about putting money in Black communities.
No, actually, it's the opposite. A lot of lawsuits happening because of DEI. They were so clever with the reversal of affirmative action, because it wasn't about affirmative action. That was a Trojan horse to get all of these set asides that all of the companies, including Boeing and others, have to even the playing field. All that's gone now.
All that's gone.
And that UPS power, they did a power move, went on strike, and UPS is like, I'm laying off 12,000. I mean, it's untenable if we sit in it and bitch and complain about it and don't use our ample might. And Black folk got more political might than any other group in this country because we disproportionately show up to vote more than any other group in this country.
We do. And I was very much aware of that and very sensitive to the very thing you said about using that power, because when I was lieutenant governor, I deliberately went in and reformed the power centers around education and economic development in Maryland, and created strategies that actually made a difference. Don't have to believe me, just go look at the record of what we did. I remember having conversation with the big banks in Maryland and asking them why they were still redlining Black businesses, and why is it so hard for a Black entrepreneur to get a loan. And when they got the loan, they were paying basically usury rates, and they started hemming. And I said, okay, well, let me tell you this. This is the recommendation I'm making to the governor, that we take all our state money out of your banks and put it in the 3 Black banks that are in the state of Maryland, all of it. $25 billion. You ready for it? We can make that move happen in a week. And they were like, what? So leverage. It's about leveraging your what you have in the conversation you're having and letting them know you're serious. And we become too easy to accept that someone's going to do something for us, and then 2 years, 4 years later, it hasn't been done, and we're like, okay, I'm going to give you one more time to get it done. And 2 years and 4 years later, we're like, okay, I'm going to give you one more time because I know you got my heart, right? Because you came to my church and you sat next to the bishop at my church in the pulpit, and he laid hands on you, and you said you were going to do X, and okay, I'll give you one more time to do X. And then 2-4 years later, he come back in your church, and bishop is like, okay, let me lay hands on you one more time because maybe it'll stick this time. We got to stop that.
Yes.
We got to say, you know what? Your ass ain't coming to my church until you actually get the rows outside the church fixed.
Period.
Period.
All right. Well, listen, I want to continue this conversation beyond 2024. I want us to lay the foundation for what freedom looks like, what a viable country where everyone is seen and fed and everyone should have a roof over their heads. No one should be in the streets, right? What does that look like? And how do we build real community in a space that's never reckoned with its past? We're going to have that conversation for the rest of the duration, as long as I have breath in my body, until we fix this. I'm committed to that. I'm committed to that.
That's a good conversation. It's an important conversation. And it's not what you just heard Karen say, folks. She didn't mention Republican or Democrat. She didn't mention liberal or conservative. What she was talking about is having a conversation about how we're going to govern ourselves, how we're going to work together, how we're going to make change and improve on that change as time changes. So we got to get out of our head that everything is political, because it isn't. The parties want you to think that. And I know that firsthand. Look, I've been in that space. I can do politics all day long. I can, go hard against a Democrat or go soft. They can go hard against me or go soft. We know that game. But what's happening now is we're looking at the environmental challenges we have, the economic challenges we have, the criminal justice challenges, all these things that are confronting and here's the kicker, they're not just confronting Black folks and brown folks. There are a whole lot of poor white folks in this country too. That's why I don't get why y'all so angry at us. You just as poor as we are, right?
Poorer,
right?
Yes.
But here's the thing. The thing is that when your skin color ain't as dark as yours and mine, you think you have a way out. But you don't, because you are poorer. Don't believe me? Go to Mississippi, the poorest state in the union. Right? Just go there and don't think that is all you're gonna see are Black folks. That's not how it works. So we need to get out of our mind the stigmatization and the polarization that gets put in there by our politics, because we're trying to win an election to get power that we don't share. To get power that we don't use on behalf of people, because that's why we elect people, right? I told people in Maryland when you elected me, I said, look, I'm going to do this job as if I only have 4 years to do it, because I know the next 4 years after that aren't promised. And I don't assume that they are. Today, our politicians assume that you will elect them because they'll say enough crap to scare the hell out of you about Mexicans coming across a border, or about a Black man moving down the street, or a Black woman enrolling her child in the public school near you, that you lose sight of the very things that you were otherwise focused on. So.
Amen. I wish you had pulled that money out and given it to the Black banks. I wish you had done that, not just threaten it.
Yeah.
Because that then would send the message.
Yeah.
That then would send the message,
but
right?
We did some things. We did some things to reinforce them. We did create chances put dollars in play for them to make the loans that they needed to make to some of the communities. But you're right. It takes that kind of bold action to move, disruptive action. And so there's a lot of value in the idea of good trouble.
Yes. I just wrote that down under the economics. We should put pressure on our mayors and governors to make that kind of bold move. Since I didn't know that was a move you could do. Thank you for
always,
yes.
always follow the money.
Yes.
Always
Thank you.
Follow where they put it and follow where they take it from. Yeah.
We're going to continue this conversation. Michael Steele. I thank you for being here. Of course, y'all can check him out with our friend Simone D. Sanders Townsend and Alicia Menendez on Saturdays 8 to 10 and Sundays 8 to 10 on MSNBC. The Weekend is what it's called.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
You guys look like you're having fun. And of course, the Michael Steele podcast. Thank you for showing up today.
You got it, sis. You take care of yourself. Be blessed.
Thank you. You too.